The views and content expressed on the following program are provided solely for informational and entertainment purposes. They do not constitute legal advice. A podcast is not a substitute for retaining a competent, licensed attorney to advise you on your specific legal situation.
Break the business, play is work and work is play. Power into creators, have fun along the way. Break the business, doing what it takes. Celebrate success and learn from the mistakes.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is time for Break the Business, where we empower indie creators and have some fun along the way. I'm Ryan Kairalla, and it is a pleasure to have you here this week. I gotta tell you, viewers and listeners, this is an exciting week for us here at Break the Business. We have made a couple equipment upgrades, some technical juicing is happening here at the program, and the reason why we've been able to make some of these upgrades, by the way, is you all. You continue to support this program. You continue to help us move this forward. We've been at this for nearly a decade now, and your continued love, your continued good reviews, your rates, your telling a friend have brought us to the point where, we get to bring a few more toys into this program. And all I would say is with these new toys, inevitably will come some really weird technical stuff that happens along the way. So I just ask you all, bear with us this week. If things come in a little weird, a little screwy, if something goes wrong, if a stage light falls on my head, hilarious. Just bear with it, and we're still going to have a fantastic show today. We're jam-packed. We're filled with amazing stuff to go over with all of you viewers and listeners. It's going to be an absolute party. We're going to be talking in the first segment with Donnie Kerr, acclaimed Broadway actor, about the Rockers on Broadway event. A really cool celebration of just performing arts and supporting arts education. Going to get some advice from him as well. And then in the second segment, we have a fantastic guest this week in the form of New Age artist Kevin Keller. Had a really ambitious New Age medieval chant project all about Hildegard von Bingen. If you don't know who that name is, I don't blame you. I had to look it up myself before the show. If you do know who that name is, good on you for having such a good liberal arts education in college, I believe. But the project he put together around this medieval musician, bringing it to life, is an amazing story in indie creation, and one that we're very, very excited to share with you. And speaking of amazing people that we're excited to share with you, let us bring in our fantastic co-host this week, musician, investor, and frontman for Gideon King and City Blog. Gideon King is here. Gideon, how are you, my friend?
I am awesome. I'm the same as I was the last time we saw each other.
And awesome then, I hope?
Free of doubt, feeling good.
Free of doubt? You tell me your secrets.
I don't know why I said it.
There you go.
I just said it.
Gideon, I can tell you I am free from sadness when I see you, my friend. I know that a Gideon King co-hosting is a guaranteed fun conversation, perhaps some fireworks along the way that I know the musicians and viewers and listeners that are checking out this program love. But what I want to talk to you about this week, before we bring in some of our other guests, is I want to revisit with you a conversation we were having on the program last week about this pretty wild copyright lawsuit that came in involving Miley Cyrus. So let me catch up the viewers and listeners on what happened. Then I want to get your perspective on it, Gideon. On September 16th, a private equity firm called Tempo Music Investments filed a lawsuit against Miley Cyrus and everybody basically within 100 feet of the Miley Cyrus song Flowers. Her co-writers, record label, producer, everybody got sued. And the substance of the lawsuit is that it's being alleged that the song Flowers that she created is infringing on the Bruno Mars song When I Was Your Man. And, it's pretty well known at this point that there are some similar lyrical elements between the two songs. Whether that rises to the level of infringement or even constitutes actionable copyright infringement is an open question. But the dimension of the case that I really want to talk about with you, Gideon, is the plaintiff in this suit. Because the plaintiff is not Bruno Mars. It is indeed a private equity firm that has a right to some of the royalties from the Bruno Mars song. Bruno Mars has nothing to do with this case. He is not involved. And I remember you and I having a private equity related conversation some weeks back in which I expressed some fear about the increasing role that private equity was going to be playing in the music industry, and perhaps that private equity's involvement in the securitization of copyrights could lead to more infringement lawsuits, because generally investment firms are less chill about potential copyright infringement than, say, musicians are, who might just enjoy the homage to works that, the homage to their work that future works do. And so, you and I, if I remember that conversation from last time, we have slightly different views when it comes to private equity as a whole. Your view, a much more educated and nuanced view, talking about, while private equity certainly has some bad pub these days, they play a very important role in our economy. They often bring distressed companies back to life, and we should be nuanced about it. Contrast that with my view on private equity, which was something along the lines of, boo, boo private equity. And so with that being said, now that we're seeing private equity getting involved into the copyright space, love to get your thoughts on that and just your thoughts on this case in general.
Well, I mean, listen, if you buy a used Toyota at a digital car auction, I didn't plan this answer. It's just what came to me as you were speaking. And you buy it from Jim on the street, and now it's your Toyota, and the brakes don't work, and there's a recall. Okay. And you want to sue Toyota because of faulty manufacturing processes and maybe even an intent to diminish the quality of the product in order to save money. I don't think your right to sue Toyota should be prejudiced. Okay. You can be, if it's a derivative suit or whatever, you can have standing. So I don't think we need to get excited about or rant about or get high blood pressure about the idea that when an entity, whether it's the demonic private equity, buys an asset, that it perfects its rights to the asset or attempts to, just as anybody else in the world who has title to anything would do. Not only that, it actually may make the world a little bit more alert as to infringement and intent about infringement. So I'm not actually so hyped up about that. I'm more hyped up about other elements of this lawsuit and its implications in general. But I would be pretty chill about the idea of private equity buying music catalogs and so on. They monetize it. They do better for the artists because the artists still keep a cut. Man, there's always an economic value chain. There was when private equity wasn't involved. And there's positives and negatives to private equity being involved. There'll be a lot of bullshit lawsuits and there'll be a lot of nonsense, but there will also be a lot of meritorious lawsuits with colorable arguments where they are defending the rights of the song and the creators of the song. And so, as with everything, man, it's a mixed bag. And I think you got to apply balance to the way you look at the world. You can just call me Mr. Balance if you want. You don't have to, but you can if you want to. Mr. B is fine.
I mean, is there something we can do with that, producer Lauren, where we just change Gideon's name temporarily on the caption to Mr. Balance?
Call me Mr. B, yeah.
Well, Mr. B, I wish I could share your optimism about this development, that, sometimes private equity is going to file perfectly meritorious copyright claims if they have some rights, and sometimes they'll file some frivolous ones, but ultimately there will be balance. I'm not seeing balance right now. I have yet to see the private equity or investment firm funded copyright case where I haven't gone, well, that's pretty, stupid and frivolous, right? We had the structured asset sales Ed Sheeran case, which was pretty dang frivolous. And we have this one, which, I mean, again, if you're Mr. Balance, I'm Mr. Fair Use. And this is as pretty clear of a fair use case as I've ever seen. If the lyrics of these two songs are similar, right? When I Was Your Man by Bruno Mars and Flowers by Miley Cyrus, if they're similar because one song is parodying the other. One song is commenting on the themes of the other, which is perfectly protected by copyright law. And it's probably the reason why Bruno Mars never would have thought to bring this case, but a cold capitalist profit maximizing private equity firm would try to bring this case. And I'm not worried about Miley Cyrus, by the way.
Bruno Mars and Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran are brutal capitalists, then you need to open your eyes a lot wider. And let me say something else.
I mean, show me the show me the Bruno Mars suit here. Bruno Mars could have brought this suit if he wanted to.
It's much deeper than the law understands, and it's much deeper than the prism through which you're viewing the issue. I took the two songs out and I learned them both on my guitar. Okay. By the way, they're both really boring harmonically and really mediocre, to be honest. I mean, just to be honest, but like they're sort of D minor, A minor, C. Okay. So D minor is very similar to C because it's just the second mode of C, Ionian. And so there are striking and shocking similarities between the songs. Now, does that rise to the level of infringement? I'm sure it doesn't in many cases. Here's the problem with all of this. Fair use, infringement, so on and so forth. There's not, in these cases, in my view, enough evidence, discussion of, consideration of intent. In every other litigation that I've been involved in, and I've been involved in a boatload of litigation in my life, intent is at the forefront, particularly when it comes to meting out judgment, whether it's sentencing in a criminal form or damages or specific performance. But in these cases, everybody sits around and they talk about fair use and they talk about, are the lyrics similar? It's so much deeper than that. The other day I was in the studio and I was writing a song with my bandmates. My wife walks in with the dog and says, this one part of this song sounds like a Billy Joel song. And so you had 8 self-impressed musicians look at my wife, who's not a musician, and say, uh-oh, you're right. None of us quite realized that that one part of the song was very much like a Billy Joel song. So we changed it, and we changed it radically. So if we looked at the facts and circumstances around that, you would see that the intent was clearly not to infringe, not to create some kind of loose facsimile of what Billy Joel did. The question in this case, since the similarities are striking, regardless of your argument about parody and that one song is a call in response to the other song, the harmonic elements are strikingly similar. The beats per minute, the cadence, all that other stuff isn't. The question is, will the facts, when you get into depositions and interrogatories, will the facts show that there was a willful intent to imitate or to copy the other one? If the facts don't show that, then I'm with you, okay, that it may be frivolous. But before I see all of that, which I don't think you've seen that because I don't think they're there procedurally on the lawsuit. I think
all we have is a complaint.
Exactly. All we have is a complaint where you and I both know when you write up a complaint, you sue everybody that's related to everything. You just put 1,000 people in the complaint, right? So before we say anything is frivolous or is not a colorable claim, I think we need to let due process play out a little bit more and see the facts and circumstances leach to the surface. But then again, I'm Mr. B, so I would say that.
Well, Mr. B, here's my concern about that is you wanted to be called Mr. B. We're going with it.
Now I don't like it anymore.
I kind of like it. It fits well for me. But here's the thing: is that in copyright law is unique among lots of other kinds of, say, torts or civil offenses. Is that in that copyright is what's called a strict liability offense. Intent doesn't matter. If you copied, it doesn't matter if you meant to do it. So if you and your bandmates had taken a little bit too much of that Billy Joel song and your significant other didn't come into the room and warn you about it, you could have been at risk, even though you didn't mean to do anything. And the song might have just been in the back of your head. And that's a terrible way to live. And so my response has always been that in the copyright world, we need to give people a little bit of breathing room and not sue every time 3 notes strung together sound the same as 3 other notes strung together.
So this is where we agree, Brian, because if copyright law could get its SHIT together, okay, it would understand that there are so many harmonic similarities between so many songs, as Ed Sheeran pointed out, that the real issue is not whether the lyrics are the same or sound the same or so on, because songs are going to converge. Your guest who's coming on the show has written songs and written music. He has subconsciously, okay, used harmonic structures and cadences and ideas and rhythmic devices that are age old, okay? And whether it's fair use or not fair use, what copyright law needs to do, if it actually wants to avoid frivolous nonsense, is start introducing meaningful evidence of intent into precedent and the law, and then you can really separate the chicken shit from the chicken salad. Then you'll really know whether willful infringement took place. Otherwise, man, I mean, I just heard a Doors song the other day, and then I listened to a John Mayer song. I was like, oh, same chords. You know what I mean? So it's like we got to get more sophisticated here in copyright law and stop throwing around these seemingly sophisticated things like fair use and infringement, and actually start getting to the elemental nature of what actually took place when the songs were written. Because ineluctably, songs are going to be similar, man. They just are. It's hard to write stuff that's truly not path dependent on the past. Anyway, Mr. B is spoken. I'm done.
Well, I mean, and ultimately, here's why that concern of yours is concerning to me.
Right.
It's not because I'm worried about Miley Cyrus. Like, I don't want to see anybody get sued if I don't think they deserve to be sued. But ultimately, if Miley Cyrus has to pay some lawyers some money, she's got the scratch for it. What concerns me about this rise of litigation are the people that don't have Miley Cyrus's war chest. And before it even gets to litigation, right? One of the things I have to do with a lot of clients in the entertainment space when they get started is try to get them E&O policies, copyright infringement insurance, so that when something like this happens, the insurance will cover the legal costs. And the problem is, as we're seeing more of these high-profile copyright suits, those rates are going up and are becoming too expensive for indie artists to be able to afford. Much how, you're a Floridian part-time, Gideon, that a lot of the frivolous insurance litigation is causing homeowners insurance rates to go up. The same thing's happening.
Which is why you, as an attorney with a heightened moral conscience, need to champion tort reform and need to start changing the bent of our United States away from frivolous lawsuits. So we agree on that.
No, I'm too busy trying to get private equity to not do the frivolous lawsuits in the first place. But maybe we can attack this from two fronts, Mr. Balance. So I have somebody, Gideon, that I'm really excited for you to meet. Not only do I like introducing you to awesome people in the entertainment industry that I know you're going to hit it off with, but the idea of also getting to introduce you to a fellow New Yorker, I can already see you guys like having lunch in a Central Park Cafe somewhere and just having so much cool stuff to talk about. I want to give this gentleman a chance to drop in here in the first segment and tell us a little bit about what he's doing. He's an acclaimed Broadway actor, musician, and the founder of the Path Fund. This is a really cool organization, Gideon. They provide resources and mentoring to performing artists. And he's also, through the Path Fund, the creator of Rockers on Broadway. It's an annual celebration of rock and Broadway, and it supports arts education initiatives. And this year's benefit event is going to be held at Sony Hall on October 28th. Excited to welcome Donnie Kerr on To Break the Business. Hi, Donnie.
How are you, man?
Oh, so excited to talk to you and so excited to introduce you to Gideon King. Before I give you two a chance to really just have a fun convo about a lot of cool stuff in entertainment, because even before the show, you two were having great conversations about like when you were in the movie Wall Street, Donnie, and just all the stuff that came from that, because, Gideon's a Wall Street guy. Want to give you a chance to talk about Rockers on Broadway. This is a really cool event. Producer Lauren's been involved with it for many years, and frankly, he's just never shut up about it since then. And so I want to hear from you. What makes this event so special? Why can't producer Lauren stop talking about it?
Because it is special. It's got a lot of heart to it. We're all there for the right reasons. But we're there to rock out for a good cause. That's really the bottom line. I started this back in 1993 with Pete Townsend when I was doing the Who's Tommy, the original Who's Tommy on Broadway. And then we decided that we were going to continue this on, and then we started a company called the Path Fund, which is a non-for-profit company, which has helped us come to this place where we're actually making a huge difference and helping these kids, which is great. I'm very proud of it. It's just going to be our 31st year, 31 years doing this. Yeah. Thank you. So I'm really proud of it. And this year we're honoring Huey Lewis, who will be attending, and a guy named Peter Bradley Jr., who we're giving an Ambassador of Rock award to. But we have a lot of Broadway stars coming to join us. James Carpinello, Lauren Lolo Pritchard. Ryan Redmond, Max Sangerman. A special guest is Billy Joel's daughter, Alexa Ray Joel, and the voice, Jackie Romeo, is joining us. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm really, really. Thanks for having me on your show, number one. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be on October 28th in New York City at Sony Hall. Look at, I've even got the thing here for you. La la la. So yeah, come down, check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and we
producer
raise money
Lawrence
for a great cause.
Producer Lauren's got the graphic up there on the screen, but frankly, I like it a lot better when Donnie's just like ramming it as close to his camera as possible. Both things work just fine. So let me ask you, Donnie, you know, I imagine this event means a particular amount of it has a particular amount of fondness for you simply because it gives you an opportunity to see to support like Broadway, something you love, something that you're so close to, something you've contributed so much to. How much of, kind of put into perspective for us what this event means to you when also, put up against your Broadway career, being in the original Broadway cast of Jersey Boys, Billy Elliot, the Who's Tommy, just an amazing playbill page for you. Put those two things together, your career alongside this amazing event you get to do every year.
Wow. Okay. In our business, in my business, I feel like there's just not enough. There's not enough education coming out. We need support, especially when we're young. I did my first Broadway show when I was 12 years old, and my mom was a very supportive parent. But it was a crazy business. It's a crazy business. Broadway is, but it's my home. It's the best. But it's been very good to me through rough times, through good times, through all of it. It's kind of been like it's weird, Broadway to me has kind of been like my brother, or it's like I've been an angel that's sort of been there in my life that keeps coming back. And so I wanted to. When we did Rockers on Broadway, I got the chance to sing right next to Pete Townsend. He came in and played, and the reason why we did it is because he said, I want Broadway people to understand what rock and roll is on stage. So he came in and said, Donnie, put this thing together and we'll do it. And I said, okay, great. So he came to the rehearsal, and I remember that moment like it was yesterday. He came into rehearsal with his guitar and he said, all right, what do you want to do first? I said, well, let's do Pinball Wizard since we all know that one, right? So, and then he started playing the intro to that, right into it. And then he went into the strum, and he was windmilling, and he was full out. He was going like he was doing a show in front of 100,000 people. He was fully in it. And it took me to another place. Like the energy of that made me go, oh shit! Right now, I have the opportunity to be Roger Daltrey for 5 minutes. It's like it was a big like energy boost. And I thought, well, I want everybody I know who is a performer to feel like this at least once in their life. And so that's why I kept it going. It means a lot to me, and it gives people an opportunity to do something different. Not as controlled. Like, because when we work on Broadway, we rehearse, we know exactly where we're going to be, what our marks are, what song we're going to sing. Everything is prepared, and you always have to prepare before you perform. But with Rockers on Broadway, it's another element for them, and Broadway people get to perform next to their favorite rock star, and or their favorite Broadway star. So it's for these kids, these young kids coming up. I mean, they're so excited that they get to be part of something that brings all these wonderful people together, and it lifts them up. It gives them hope. It gives them a goal to reach for.
Donnie, what do you you said they need support, and here's an observation that I'll share with you. and I'd like to hear what you have to say in this context. I'm around musicians all the time just because of my band. And these are musicians who have real careers in music, touring with some of the biggest acts in the country, but also playing weddings.
Yeah.
They come off tour literally with arena acts, and then to keep making money, they play weddings. And
Yeah.
then they play with me, and then they play. And so it's fascinating. And so one of the things that they're always asking me about, okay, because I've become really good friends with these people, is the business side of things, and just like figuring out just even how to schedule themselves, what to say no to, what to say yes to. A lot of them have a hard time saying no to things unless they understand their worth. And so I guess my question for you is, Donnie, when you say they need support, I know what I see in terms of these people needing support. And these are smart people, but they need support in these ways. What are you seeing when you say they need support? Support in what exactly?
Okay. When you're young and you're not a professional and you haven't played and you've never had that opportunity, and then you suddenly get the opportunity to be on stage with people who have influenced you or people who have inspired you, and you get to have that one-on-one moment. It gives people confidence and belief in themselves. And listen, in regards to the people who play for arenas and then they come back and they play for weddings, let me say this, because I've done that. I've been there. It really doesn't matter if it's a stadium or if it's 100 people. The show is the same. The way you play is the same. The way that you perform is who you are.
So
And
true.
it's not a matter of how many people are in the room. Yeah, there's big gigs and there's small gigs. There's gigs you do for money and there's gigs you do for the heart.
Yeah.
And that's what I believe. And I think that's the only thing that keeps you staying positive in this business. Because otherwise, if you just do the money part of it, you lose the heart of it. And if you lose the heart of it, then you're going to lose that other part too. Don't think that you can't learn anything. People that think, oh, I've done it, I've made it, I don't need to worry about anything else, I don't need to work at it anymore. Complete mistake. There's never, ever, ever a moment when you shouldn't stop learning, stop getting better. You should always be getting better, always be reaching higher, always go for the next step, the next level. If you've reached a standard, that's great. Now you got to raise the standard just a little bit. All right. Because every time you do this, this is what you do. And this is how you make a living. And then you know what? It's even when you go do a show, and let's say it's not the best show you've ever done, and you feel about it, you don't feel great about it. After the show, you go out, okay, well, you did it. And you did the best you could. As long as you know that you did gave your 150%, then there's nothing you should ever feel bad about.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I agree.
So whether you play in arenas or you play in clubs or at weddings, you know what? Enjoy what you do. Otherwise, get out. That's my advice. Is that
it's fascinating. The best performers and the ones actually, in my experience, the ones who become the most successful, they bring the same amount of enthusiasm to a show where the crowd is like 9 people to when it's like literally 5,900 people. And I've noted that. There's a singer that I've worked with, Mark Broussard.
You know Mark?
Yeah, he's on a lot of my CDs. Yeah, and I spoke to him today, and he actually just released a really a cool album produced by Jay Most from Emily King. But he's amazing. He'll literally sing like for your dog as enthusiastically as he will in front of 1,200 people, and it makes him very
he's a
cool.
real artist,
and it's also humble. It's really humble.
Yep, it's the way it should be. Speaking, you know what? It's funny. I've there was a big Broadway star named Gavin Creel who just died. We lost him.
Oh yeah,
big Broadway guy.
Yeah,
and his name's Gavin. And actually, me and my producing partner were thinking we would, because we're huge fans of Mark, And we've spoken with his management before about coming up and doing it, but we wanted to get him up here on the 28th of October to come and sing that song for our friend who passed, whose name was Gavin.
Gavin.
And Gavin's song, yeah.
Right.
And then he also, because we're honoring Huey Lewis, Mark Broussard recorded something with Huey Lewis. I forget the name of it at this time, but they did a song together.
Yeah.
And I just would love it if we could get Mark there, man. That would be amazing.
Well, my manager is Doug Shaw, who's Mark's manager. So you text me after, and I'll put you on the phone with Doug, and I won't be part of it. You'll handle it.
I knew it, producer Lauren. These two are going to absolutely be at a sidewalk cafe in the next 36 hours, having a really nice brunch together. We did.
When I get to New York end of the month, I'll make that happen.
Wait,
we have to
stop everything. What the hell?
What was that?
The laser lights?
Just happened behind you, Connie. What would show that?
Effects.
Yeah,
that was insane. Anyway.
I wanted to pop on because I couldn't stop myself. Ryan was up here saying, why does Lauren keep going? And as he talks about this, I'm like, Donnie talks about it, but he's got to be one of the most humble people I know. And like, he is so undercutting the magic that happens. And he talks about the kids and the magic for these children. And like you're saying, it's a small show, but you work with them before the show. You've been working with them throughout this time to teach them the industry. And then the magic of professionals, like Gideon was mentioning, it doesn't matter if you're performing for your dogs or for a whole bunch of people. They see the detail. Every one of those musicians does. Every person backstage, they get to autograph posters alongside big names. Like, it's every single detail that happens in a professional show. And watching those kids light up and watching them care and knowing that it'll stick with them. You have never seen anything like the look on Donnie's face when he's working with those children. Like, I'll watch the rest of the show, it's happening, and he's sitting in front like, I've got them. And I'm like, look at him go.
I'm so blessed with that. I think they're amazing. I really am so proud of them. Because what I was saying before, real quick, let me just say this. When I was a kid, when I was that young, yes, I had a supportive mom. But I went to a school where everybody was an actor and everybody was a performer. And some kids are tough, man. They're mean. Kids can be bullies, and then it would be like, I'm going to be more famous than you and la, la, la. And it was so like, you grow up with that. It does fuck you up. It can fuck you up. Excuse my language. But it's also a matter of that fact that I wanted to give kids who were so impressionable trying to figure it out. I was lucky enough when I was 15, I got a mentor, a wonderful mentor, a very, very famous writer, guy named Fred Ebb of Candor and Ebb, who was my mentor and like a godfather to me. And thank God for him. He taught me the rights and the wrongs of the business. He showed me what was, how was the right way to act in a room. And when you walk in, you say hello and you say thank you and all those things. I needed that. I didn't know that. And so I had that. So then in doing this Rockers on Broadway, it enables me to be able to help kids find their artistic path. And
not just then.
Yeah.
No, right? You do it year round. Like, you guys helped over 100 people. I don't remember exactly how many, but during COVID, artist funding and helping people get through that time. And
the community fund. Yes, we did
Broadway Cares, Equity Fights AIDS. You work a lot with them. And Path Fund alone. So I mean, we could go on for eternity, and you have to promise me you're going to come back as a guest with your personal music. But for now,
I would love to. I would love to. Absolutely love to.
How can we get tickets for the event? Can you tell us how we can get
tickets? If you go to rockersonbroadway.com or thepathfund.org, there's a link there to Ticketmaster, and you can get tickets that way.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Donnie.
You're welcome. Congratulations.
I want to also promote that we're also, we're still promoting the Rockers on Broadway Live Volume 1 album that we have on our label now, Rockers on Broadway Records.
What? Okay.
Yes.
We're going to bring you back. We're going to bring you back. We'll talk all about the label.
Love it. Love it. Thank you guys so much. And I really appreciate it. Thank you. All
You
right.
got it.
Good to see
So
you.
appreciative to everything Donnie does to the artistic
it's
for the artistic
amazing.
community. Amazing dude. All right, let's take a quick break. We're going to come back with Kevin Keller here on Break the Business. Don't go anywhere. Break the Business is presented in cooperation with Ryan Kairalla, PA. Ryan Kairalla, PA is a law firm providing transactional entertainment legal services, including contracts, business formation, commercial law, copyright, trademark, and more. Ryan Kairalla, PA, Miami, Florida. rkpalaw.com.
Streaming services for Break the Business provided by LEK Entertainment. LEK Entertainment is a full-service entertainment company offering everything from consultations to full-scale events and productions, including audio and video productions, voiceovers, staged theatrical productions, script and music development, and streaming services. For more information, visit lekentertainment.com. LEK Entertainment wants to help you bring your story to life.
Thanks for supporting Break the Business. If you have a question or topic that you want us to discuss, email us at breakthebusiness@gmail.com. You can follow the host, that's me, on Twitter at Ryan Kair, and you can follow the show at the BTB Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, and on all major podcast platforms. And now, let's get back to the show. Welcome back to Break the Business, everybody. Gideon, I want to give the viewers and listeners a little bit of a pro tip about copyright infringement since it's been our topic in the last segment. One way that you can guarantee avoiding any kind of copyright infringement liability is have your music be inspired by 12th century medieval musicians, because you can be pretty damn assured that it's in the public domain.
Oh, yeah, that's in the public domain.
Oh, yeah. In that regard, let's bring out our guest this week.
In the sound of the future, where melodies fly, Kevin Keller brings the magic beneath the open sky. Welcome, Kevin Keller, to the world you create. With your music and your passion, we can hardly wait.
Our guest this week is an acclaimed New Age artist whose latest album, Evensong, explores the distinctive melodies of medieval composer Hildegard of Bingen. The album is available now, and you can find out more about our guest's work by visiting kevinkeller.com. We are happy to welcome Kevin Keller on to Break the Business. Hello, Kevin.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing so very well. I got to dig right into this project that you've done because it's pretty wild. To call this project, I feel ambitious, I feel would require quite the gift for understatement. Let me lay it out for the viewers and listeners here. To create your album, you had to transcribe medieval melodies, which, by the way, predate musical notation. They predate modern concepts of like rhythm and meter. And so you had to kind of like work off of like, you know, music theory that just doesn't exist anymore. Talk to us about that process. How do you do that?
Well, yeah, that's exactly was the challenge of making this album. And it made, I'll have to say that Evensong is absolutely the most difficult record I ever tried to make. Yeah, it was just very tricky because it wasn't just the transcribing of music and getting it to the singers and everything, but it was also just finding the right songs of Hildegard's that would work within the context of what I was trying to create with my own work. So yeah, it was very challenging.
Since you brought Hildegard up, now, Kevin, obviously I know everything about Hildegard von Bingen. Obviously I'm an expert, right? But for Gideon's sake, could you talk a little bit about who this person was and what inspired you to want to make an album about some of their music?
So Hildegard of Bingen, she was alive in the 1100s, and she was a Catholic nun who lived in a monastery in a place called Dissebodenborg in Germany. And she, in her lifetime, she lived quite long. She became an extremely influential person in the church. She had a lot of support from the Pope, the Pope at the time, which is really quite remarkable, really, because I mean, we're talking about medieval times, and a woman in the church having as much influence and power as she was able to have was really quite something. She's quite well known for her visions. She saw visions from a very early age, and she actually wrote down these visions and kept them in a book that was called the Scivias, which is still exists even now. So she was really she was a scientist, a naturalist, a composer. And she actually was incredibly prolific as a composer and wrote a huge amount of music. And what's really cool about her music is that this was a time in very early Western music where you didn't have accompaniment even. So it was just single line melodies that she was writing, no chords underneath them of any kind. So,
Wow.
So that made
And
it
so-
actually kind of easy to, adapt. For what I was doing.
I love that you say that makes it easy. To me, that seems like that makes it harder. You have less to work with. Like all she's giving you is a melody which doesn't have a rhythm behind it and isn't in like a notation that you would have learned in your college music theory class. That sounds just very, very difficult. I mean, in the course of doing this difficult and ambitious project, did anybody ever try to talk you out of it? Did you ever try to talk you out of it?
I tried talking myself out of it, certainly. There were many, many times. I would say it took me a full year of experimenting before I finally felt like I was onto something with this. And once I found the right combination of sounds and songs of hers and music of mine, once that happened, which took a full year of trial and error, then the record actually came together pretty quickly. It came together in 3 or 4 months last year. But yeah, that year, I remember writing in my journal many, many times notes to myself like, I don't know about this. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. This could become a train wreck, but I kept at it, and I'm glad I did.
Kevin, it's funny. I listen to stuff like this sometimes, and I check it out, and I call it kind of like, in a way, it's like primordial music, and it's the thing that is always extraordinary to me is you can listen to Stevie Ray Vaughan, and he's borrowing a little from Charlie Parker, and then Charlie Parker's borrowing from Beethoven, and Beethoven's borrowing from pre-classical, and pre-classical's borrowing. And so when you listen to this stuff and when you transcribe it, and I guess you're just sort of imposing chords over it or whatever is suggested by the melody line, whatever. What are you hearing? Are you hearing that this is the first music that in effect it's like everything that's in Ravel and everything that's in Paul McCartney and everything that's in Taylor Swift and everything that's in John Coltrane? What are you hearing when you actually listen to it? Because when I listen to that stuff, I'm literally relating it to everything from Prokofiev to Drake, and so and to soul music, to church music. So what are you hearing in this, and what did it sort of inspire inside you? It's kind of not a particularly well phrased question on my part, but I think you might know what I'm getting at.
I think so, yeah. And I will say that, I mean, that's really amazing that when you hear that kind of music, that you draw that line from from 800 years ago to now. That's really incredible. I will say though, when I'm listening to her music, I don't know that I'm necessarily thinking about how it relates to now, or how it sort of the threading the the needle, or making the fabric that makes all the music after it. It really, to me, just comes across as being the purest music that there is, and it's and so when I was working with it, I was very conscious of the purity of it and wanted to make sure that whatever I was doing as a composer to support it was honoring that purity, that was honoring what was inherently in the music. And I didn't want to ever get into a situation where I was like editing it or maybe sampling it. Like I wanted to make sure, I wanted to make sure that the vocal performances on my record were true to, what the spirit of Hildegard of Bingen and that style of music. And that, that was really what I was going for. So, yeah.
Did you see the similarities? Meaning, like, Ryan, it's like Western music is modal music. There's these things called the modes, and Western music is sort of governed by the modes, not totally, but it's a meaningful part of Western music. When you hear that primordial music or that very pure music, to use your language, are you relating it to your training, or because I couldn't help it. If I listened to it, I'd be like, oh, she's kind of suggesting C major, like, meaning I couldn't help but have it suggest something theoretically to me. But are you just sort of, for you, is it just like it's the wind and it's blowing and it's that pure, and I'm not going to relate it to physics and biology and chemistry?
Right. I certainly a little bit of that was happening for me, obviously. Right. And that was because I had set up a framework for the album where I wanted to start in Phrygian mode and go up the scale, up the white keys of the piano through all the different modes, and end the album also on that same mode. Cool. So I was being very, I was very cognizant of that, and was almost acting almost like a researcher, in the original part of it. Cool. But once those songs of hers were chosen and I knew what mode they were in, I tried not to think about like what chord progressions they might be suggesting to me. And you can actually hear that like in the very first track, the opening track on the album, which is in Phrygian mode, which is actually, it's kind of like a minor key, but with a lowered second step in there. So it's this very mystical, mysterious kind of thing. Right. But yet, somewhere towards the end, the music, even though the chanting remains in Phrygian, I chose to put it in C major actually at some point. Because it just worked. It just worked for what I was doing. But then it eventually ends back on the Phrygian.
Ryan, do you think Kevin realizes that he's not going to get crowds as big as Taylor Swift when he plays this music live? Wait a minute. Do you think we need to tell Kevin that that might happen to him? He may not be as big as Taylor Swift with this music.
Let's let him get out on tour first and see, Like, I'm not here to make such a bold pronouncement. All right. Pop culture is cyclical, man. Like the time for Gregorian chant is due. And here is perhaps the greatest example of why that might be the case. Even the Recording Academy is catching a little Gregorian chant fever. A couple years ago, Gideon, the Recording Academy added chant, which, the genre of music that Evensong is, to the Grammy Award for Best New Age Album. So albums like Evensong could be nominated for the Best New Age Album Grammy. Now, you should know, Kevin, I love this album. I'm already rooting for you to maybe win a Grammy. I wish I knew enough about music theory as like you and Gideon to know why I enjoy the album, but I know I do. And you should know you have our support. And here's what I can tell you with respect to the Grammys. I don't know if you've been thinking about this at all, but the last New Age artist we had on Break the Business was a woman named Cheryl B. Engelhardt, who went on to get a nomination for that very Grammy Award. So I don't know if you're a superstitious person, but I'm liking the vibes here, and I'm thinking you might be going to Los Angeles pretty soon.
I hope so. And that's really funny you should mention her, because Cheryl and I literally just emailed each other today.
What?
We did. We just had a conversation today because she sent out an email to her friends just kind of reminding everybody, hey, voting starts tomorrow, and be sure that you stick to the integrity of like what the voting is supposed to be, and that includes, there's the rule where you're not supposed to let your personal connection to an artist, like your friendships with people or whatever, be the thing that makes you vote for something. And I took that one step further, and I said to her in an email, I'm actually prepared to not vote for my own album if I find 5 other albums in the genre that I think are better than mine. And she said, wow, that really is in the spirit of the Grammys. So
well, if you two if you two both get nominated this year, like that's going to create a problem for me. I might have to root for a tie. Which can happen, by the way. Like there have been people who have gotten ties and they both get the Grammy Award. That's what I want. I want you and her to both win, and you come on the show like the week after the Grammys, like each holding up your hardware. That would make me very happy.
Right. That would be great. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But in all seriousness though, like I love that the Recording Academy is recognizing the value of this genre. And though it has not gotten to like Taylor Swift Eras Tour status yet, I feel like it has come a long way in recent years. I mean, I remember like the first time I'd even heard about chant music was because my freshman year intro to musicology professor was just really into Gregorian chant and wrote his doctoral dissertation about it and got us all into it. Sort of like, had to kind of force our hand because it wasn't exactly something that was going to be on our Spotify playlist, but for our professor getting us into it. But I mean, it was the first time I'd ever heard of it. And now it's becoming more common. There are artists like you that are engaging in what I think is equal parts an interesting musical exercise, but also like an archaeology exercise to create these really cool pieces of work that you bring into the world, and they should be recognized. And you should be filling football stadiums with chant.
Oh, I would love that. That would be great. But right now I'm just filling churches, which is fine.
That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, we just had an album release party concert on Tuesday night here in New York City at the Church of the Holy Apostles down in Chelsea. And it was
Chelsea. That's cool, man.
Yeah, it was very, very fun. So,
that's very cool.
So you start with, 50 or 75 people, and who knows, maybe, I think about the new age genre, and I think, back in 1995, Yanni was the biggest concert draw of the year, even beating out the Rolling Stones, who were on tour that same year.
Yanni could fill a football stadium.
Yanni could fill Madison Square Garden, 30 years ago.
To your point, it's like you look at the Spotify streaming numbers of people like Max Richter, for example.
Right.
And and you look at that and you wouldn't like that rivals some pretty serious, like well-established pop stars. So maybe I was wrong. Maybe Kevin's going to be as big as Taylor Swift, and no one will ever talk to me again because I doubted him. I don't know.
I mean, that's a whole other conversational thread since you brought up the 90s. Like, I really do miss like just that period of time in the 90s where New Age just took over everything. I still have stuck in my head the Pure Moods music compilation album commercial. And just like how it had like Enya on it and Zamfir, King of the Pan Flute, and Yanni and all this stuff. And just like every song in that like commercial is just banger after banger. You get Sail Away, you get Return to Innocence. And, we need that time back. I mean, I think it's no coincidence, Gideon, talking about like the stock market, that like when New Age was at its peak in the 90s, the economy was doing really well, right? It was like the 90s tech boom. Everybody's making money. Everybody's happy and doing very well. I think it's because of Yanni. I think Yanni was the reason.
I think so.
You should maybe run for president.
Unfortunately, he can't because he was born in Greece. So
it's a small problem. We'll talk to some people about that. No biggie. So I want to get more Kevin Kellers into the world, right? I want to kind of inspire the next generation to explore this genre, whether it's new age or chant or anything in this area. For any artists who are intrigued by what they're hearing, maybe want to learn more about how to get into this field, how to make music in this genre, do you have any advice for them?
Oh my gosh. You know, it's I get that question a lot, and it's hard to answer because I've been doing this for 30 years. So, you know, the music industry now is quite different than it was when my first album came out in 1994. Or maybe it hasn't changed. I don't know. I mean, I just think the way I got started was that I just started my own record company in 1994 and released an album on CD, you know, which was kind of a big deal to do, you know, at that time. But I sent it out to a bunch of college radio stations, you know, because there's a lot of college radio that has like a new age or an ambient show, you know. And I was just really lucky in getting airplay eventually on National Public Radio on a show called Music from the Hearts of Space, which has been on forever. So my advice to anybody trying to get into the business, whether it's with ambient or new age or anything, is the most important thing that you can do is to forge relationships with people who will, you know, who can share your music with their listeners or with their, you know, with their audience. That's the most important thing, is developing good friendships with people that can champion what you're doing for you.
Producer Lauren, I have a super quick homework assignment here I need your help with. I know we don't have a lot of time left in the show, but could you, before the show wraps up in about 5 minutes, pull up the track list from Pure Moods, the Pure Moods compilation album? I think every track on that list is going to make me and Gideon and Kevin Keller smile. I know it's a very unreasonable request given the time crunch, but I'm hoping you can come through for us here. And so, I mean, you spoke a little bit about this when you were talking about kind of when you put out your first album 30 years ago, and now you're on, what is this, Even Songs, what, your 15th album?
It's number 14. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Man, that's fabulous. Talk about how your creative process has changed over time. You talked about the distribution, but like, how has your approach to making this music changed over the last 3 decades?
I don't think it has. I don't think it's changed at all. I really don't. Yeah, I think it's the same process. For me, it comes down to I wait until something really strikes me and inspires me to make something new. I'm not one of those musicians, because I know there's plenty of people that are musicians who are like in their studio every day making something. I don't generally work that way. I can go for months and months, 5 or 6 months maybe sometimes, without really doing much besides maybe, you know, making a couple demos or whatever. But really, for me to feel inspired enough to make an entire album, especially something like this where it's going to take you take 2 years and $10,000 and whatever, you know, and hiring all the musicians, it has to be something that I find really, really compelling. And that's always been my creative process. And often it's you know, an event that happens in my life that might be the thing that's the catalyst for it. Or sometimes it's just, in this case, like basically having a vision come to me of writing music around Hildegard of Bingen's music and seeing where that would take me. But yeah, it's very much the same process. You know, the technology has changed a little bit, but I'm still sitting at a piano, you know, plunking out melodies, and then I'm still sitting at a computer. I'm sitting at a Mac computer, which I've always been sitting at for these 30 years, using the same program that I used even in college. So, you know, I mean, everything's improved. It's amazing now, because like literally you can just plug something in and it works now, which that wasn't the case, you know, many years ago, you know? So, yeah.
I mean, what a cliche. I mean, what artist at any given time hasn't been inspired by 12th century medieval priestesses to make their music? Like every time, like every week, Gideon's calling me up talking about how he's been inspired by a different medieval priestess to make his next album. I mean, how much of what he's saying about the creative process, Gideon, resonates with your work?
Are you telling me Steely Dan is a medieval priestess? Is that what you're saying?
There it is. There's the Steely Dan reference for this week. I was wondering where it was going to come. We only had a couple minutes left in the show. I'm glad we got it in.
I mention Steely Dan in every single show because they're my favorite. They're my favorite of all time.
They're on my list of favorites as well. So
yeah,
bravo. I mean, how could they not be?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
That's great. I encourage our viewers and listeners to go to kevinkeller.com, find out more about our guest work. I mean, we're goofing around and having a good time, but honestly, this is a really cool album, and you can feel the ambitiousness of it from track one, and I think y'all are going to enjoy it. So check it out. It's called Even Song. Before we let you go, Kevin, we got one last question for you.
Okay.
Do you have any last tips for the indie creators out there to help them move their careers forward? And Lauren, do we have this Pure Moods track list? I gotta see this. Anyway, go ahead.
I guess she doesn't have it.
I know. I'm heartbroken.
I think she's
if that's
pretending
true.
that she hasn't heard that question. I think she's just ignoring you.
No,
there it is.
I totally have it. My question was whether we were allowed to play the commercial or not, because I have that as well.
Oh my God. Oh, okay. You know
It's like
what? I'm
bonus
gonna
credit.
I'm going to make a copyright law judgment call here. I'm going to say that if we play at least like maybe 30 or 40 seconds of it and provide some sufficient commentary, I mean, I'm good with it. Yes. If
I
do you
mean,
have
it
that?
all-
Fair use.
Do you have the Pure
No.
Mood? Do you have the Pure Moods commercial?
Of course.
Go.
Okay, here
And
goes.
then we'll get
It
your
is.
answer, Kevin.
Okay.
Okay, let me tell me if it's hearing audio.
Yes.
Imagine a world where time drifts slowly, a world where music carries you away.
Yes.
Experience Pure Moods, the perfect soundtrack for your way of life. Direct from Europe, this multi-platinum collection has won the hearts of millions. Set adrift with the timeless pleasures of tubular bells.
All right. Any more, we might get in
Into the
trouble.
unknown
But
with the X-Files theme.
oh my God, DJ Dono, Enya, Enigma. I mean,
Incredible.
Like, by the way, Return to Innocence is making a comeback on TikTok. Like a lot of the young kids are making like videos out of it now. Like even the Gen Zers know a banger when they hear one in the form of Return to Innocence.
And you know, I wanted to say before I answer your question that at
Yeah.
my show on Tuesday night, a younger person came up to me after the show and said, "Get track 5 into the hands of Tiesto and have him do a remix of it because that's
Yes.
a banger. It's a banger."
All right. So real quick, any last tips for the creators out there?
Yes. This is a pet peeve of mine, and I want as many people to hear this as can. Stop using the goddamn link tree thing that people are using everywhere. Get a website, please. Get a website that has your name in the domain name, and that's your link tree, people. It's so annoying to me when somebody sends me something and they're like, go to my link tree, and there's like 49 things that are just
It's
going
awful.
down. And I'm like, can't you as the artist, like this is your chance. This is your store, basically, and also embed music in your website so that when people come to your website, they can hear your music there. Don't send them to Spotify or wherever, right?
Sure.
That would be like opening a store where you're selling clothes, but then if people want to buy the clothes, they have to go to a store down the street to actually buy them. Like what? Why are you doing that?
So true,
So
man.
that is my advice to
So true.
everybody out there: is get a website. Stop doing the Linktree business because it's not helping you. It isn't. It's making it more difficult for people to get to hear your music and to care about what you're doing. So
Ryan, that's the single most specific answer you've ever had to that question since I've been co-hosting the show.
I think that's right. And also the one that most likely to get the CEO of Linktree to throw a rock through the studio window. Our thanks to Kevin Keller and Gideon King. Our thanks to producer Lauren and Donnie Kerr. And thanks to all of you viewers and listeners for checking out Break the Business. We'll see you next week.
Break